I was born in Scotland in a west coast town called Ayr. I lived there for a short period of my life, but moved when I was very young to Malaysia, where my dad is from. I was there for about 4 years and then came back to the UK to begin formal education. And throughout those years of formal education, I'd spend my summers back in Malaysia. I spent my life, therefore, between the two. There was bits of Hong Kong and bits of Singapore thrown in there as well. Maybe a little bit of Indonesia too. It was a very different place, a very different region in the world compared to the Scotland that I knew and called home. It's an interesting conversation around where you call home, because my experience has been quite unique there. When someone in Scotland asks me where I'm from, they typically assume I'm not from Scotland, and so it's easier often to say Malaysia. But when I'm in Malaysia, when people ask me where I'm from, the opposite applies, and it's easier to say I'm from Scotland. I'm always the outsider, the one that doesn't look necessarily like they fit the bill. Don't think that's a bad thing. I think it's just what it is. I mean, people just make quick assumptions based on what they know. I want to talk about the differences between those two cultures, those two cities, those two countries, and the common thread through them. I've touched on what I think it means to be Scottish in a previous video, and I think passion is at the root of it all. When you take it out, what's the point? But Scotland as a place is very different from the rest of the world. It is actually unique, with its strong egalitarian roots and inventive spirit. You see Scottish names around the world, Scottish inventions everywhere you go. And it's a prosperous place, I mean, relatively. You know, despite the narrative of the decline of the UK, we are very fortunate to live here and to benefit from the systems that are around us. The NHS is not a luxury many people have. Similarly, the education system and the fact that university education is free for Scottish students is again a luxury not many people have. Scotland as a place is a mix of great, vast and dramatic landscapes. I mean, it's a tapestry really. The tartans that you may well know, if you know about Scotland, are derived from the landscapes around Scotland, the common colours there. A dash of yellow might mean there's a gorse bush around. But the landscapes are so captivating. Deep oranges and greens in autumn, and in summer, finally, the sun rears its head. It's clean, the air is fresh, and the people are friendly. I mean, a lot friendlier than your bustling capital cities around the world. Edinburgh is the place I would probably call home, realistically, out of all the cities I've lived in. And it's growing, it's changing. It's got a deep history. It's probably got one of the most unique architectural skylines in the world, influences going back generations, centuries, in fact. You can feel the sort of dark academia that smells a bit of a brewery, but it means well. it's intending to progress. The cobblestones, the windy streets, the hills, the environment is, and to many tourists, something out of a Harry Potter movie. And it is like that. And if you go to the sea, you get the crystal blue waters you would get in the Mediterranean. Yes, they're far colder. The food, it's so warming. It fills you on those cold days and you think, wow, living in Scotland must be so tough. I mean, it's cold all the time, it's rainy all the time, but they find ways to get through, and if that's whiskey or a good pie, I'm there for it. It's just a very unique place. And you're thinking about, is that all that I am with the influences in my life? And the answer is no. I'm not just a product of that environment, those aesthetics, those looks, those feelings of what the place I call home is. It's also Malaysia, it's also Kuala Lumpur, it's also those really densely populated, packed in, busy skylines of skyscrapers and shacks beneath them. That disparity of wealth is so in your face in places, and yet the same theme applies. The country is growing. I mean, it's meaningfully growing. It's doing incredibly well in Southeast Asia. It's developing at a rapid rate, and as a former Commonwealth nation has the benefit, you might argue, of the systems instilled by the British at the time. Not all, and indeed they were a great host of disadvantages there, of course, and that needs to be recognised. The skylines there don't only consist of skyscrapers, though. They're jungles, they're great caves, and the seas are the same blue, just a little bit warmer. The food, though, is really why you're there. Malaysia is a kaleidoscope of different cultures. You've got your three main big cultures, but there's influence from around the world through the trading ports that historically made up the economy there. You might even have Dutch influences. You might find pasta de nata, on the corner of a street next to someone serving local kueh. It's all there, and the smells are so in your face. You can sample cuisines from around the world in various dishes, but also in one. And around those tables, you'll find people from various colours, creeds, and backgrounds. It's multicultural. And increasingly, Scotland is becoming multicultural. I mean, I'm sure in the statistics it's got a long way to go, but that's not really important. It's about the intention of the place, the intention of the city and the people, the acceptance for other cultures. There was an attack recently in Edinburgh on ethnic minorities perpetrated by, no, I don't know the full story, but someone intending to protect the UK. That is a scar of this, I think, great hymn of multiculturalism. Yeah, people are frustrated and they seek to point to the easy scapegoat, the immigrant or the expat, which are the same thing. It's interesting how that takes on a different hue when you're on the other side of the world. But through it, nonetheless, through that great uncertainty and, yes, a great deal of fear for people like me that don't necessarily fit in, you find that nonetheless, the cities, the people, the countries do want to accept you. That's a luxury. So when I'm home here, people ask me, oh, how is it so different over there? Tell me about what it's like, what the people are like, what the food's like. Where should I go? And when I'm in Malaysia, they ask me the same. They're so curious and so interested to know more, to appreciate more, to have empathy for what other people think and feel across the world, how their perspectives are different. I mean, they have entirely different religious contexts, and yet some of the key principles about how they act on the international stage are more or less the same. There's a cooperativeness there and a comfort that comes from that, of countries that want to accept, that want to move forward, grow and develop, and want you to be part of that. So you could call either home, and you could go home to either. I was thinking about doing a video about permanence, about seeking permanence throughout that multiculturalism, because I think as you approach the more serious stages of life, as I now am in adulthood, you kind of think you should make a concrete decision on, I will live here, I will be around these people, this is the city I will call home, I will identify with this group, and you kind of not silo yourself, not pigeonhole yourself, but you kind of build a strong identity, a strong permanence around a local area. So I'm asking myself, where should I call home permanently? And it's not something I've answered, to be honest, because, again, I call both home. Being between those homes is sometimes greatly beneficial, but sometimes also means you fall through the cracks. And on seeking permanence, I think that state of being in between is where I found home. And so the differences in cultures and influence, and perhaps where they conflict, that edge, that tension, is where I am. It's where I am home. It's where it doesn't quite fit into a neat box. It's where the influences of how I think, even down to how I cook, how I dress, how I choose to present myself to the world, the fact that they are not traditionally in this box or that it's not a no man's land, but that sitting outside, sitting slightly out of field, that's where I am. That's where I call home. So in seeking permanence through that, in finding comfort through something to call home, to call my permanent state of affairs, I found that flux is my state of affairs, and it's so exciting. It's never the same. You might find that you've got a certain preference, a certain influence on a conversation that someone has never appreciated before. And yes, that might not mean you form part of the groupthink that goes into a particular clique or argument, but I am so comfortable being there. It could be under palm trees or next to the coast at home here, and I would feel that nonetheless, that slight calling to the other home. Again, that tension is, I have found, to be my home. I think that's something that in the present climate, in the present landscape, isn't really discussed. People are quite often boxed into set categories. You are from here or you are from there. you think this way or you think that way, you're part of this camp or that camp. Quite often, I'm outside them. That way of being, I think, isn't thought about enough and isn't talked about enough, and actually isn't accepted enough. Because as things become quite polarized online and in the media, I think it's okay to take a step back and recognize who you are, what your influences are, and where you are, where you call home. There's part of you that wants to pull those various influences together and make sense of them and make it all clear under defined boundaries and categories, as so many of the traditional ways of defining where your home is are drawn. But I think what should be celebrated is that in an increasing degree, so many of us don't fit in those categories, those neat boxes. And from that, there's so much to learn from. I mean, such a diversity of opinions, of influences, of ways at looking at things. At the end of the day, that's what it's all about. It's about learning from each other, no matter where you're from.